Hello and welcome to this review of my NEC APC-H412. It's one of the Maltron 5 I mentioned recently, and I've had it for ages. It's also not the board I'm going to talk about today, because that would be this guy, which I very quickly nabbed off of eBay just a few weeks ago. It appears to be the ISO model of the H412, and it looks like it's much rarer because I've never even heard of a version other than the ANSI one I showed before. I'm one of the few people, it seems, who prefer ISO to ANSI, so I guess I'll be selling off the American one to cover the cost of the UK model, which wasn't all that expensive anyway. Anyway, it's in excellent condition, much better than I'd hoped. Unlike most of this model, which usually look like ripened bananas, this one hasn't yellowed much, if at all. And apart from a few small pen marks or something on these caps, it's very clean. I couldn't even be bothered to clean it at all. By the way, here's the model sticker. As you can see, the precise model is actually H412-2 for this version. NEC might not sound familiar to some of you, and frankly, I'd never heard of them before I learned of this keyboard, but actually NEC is an absolutely enormous Japanese IT company with over $24 billion in assets. We all know about IBM and the fantastic successes they had selling PCs in the Western world during the 80s, but in Japan, NEC ruled supreme, and Japan is a very lucrative market for this sort of thing. And until the early 90s, when Intel overtook them, NEC was the biggest manufacturer of semiconductor circuits in the entire world. So, with them selling tons of personal computers, it made sense for them to make their own keyboards, much like IBM did for their PCs. So, in a way, you could call this the Japanese Model M, although this one is of course made for the UK market. Well, it may be the Japanese Model M, but it's completely different in almost every way. In terms of build quality, the case is not quite as sturdy as the Model M's, but it's still built very well. It also has a thick metal mounting plate, and the inside assembly feels very solid. The plate does ping a bit, by the way. It's pretty heavy too, around 1.7 kilos, a fair bit heavier than even a Dell Bigfoot. Speaking of Bigfoot, for such an unassuming looking keyboard, it's deceptively big. Look at the rims and the bezel on this thing. Simple flip out feet, quite small but very functional, and a large, properly made two-sided cable gutter, always nice to have. Overall, impressive build quality for sure. The keycaps are also really nice. They're thick, double-shot ABS with a very rounded shape and a nice, elegant font. And if you look closely enough, you can spot another difference with the American board, which is known for its soft grey lettering. The grey on the ISO caps is much darker, and on the grey caps, the lettering is actually fully black. If you look at the reverse sides of the caps, you can see it especially easy. The one on the right is the American one, and the one on the left is the ISO version. And the grey caps on the ISO version have an actually black insert, as you can see. And this is what the three look like from the front. As you can see, the difference is quite noticeable. The layout on these caps is really modern, essentially just a standard 101 key ANSI and 102 key ISO, with just one small exception. They squeeze the Alt and Control keys together just to give you an even bigger spacebar. By the way, just a warning, when you pull these keycaps, don't just yank them straight up because you might break the switches. Instead, try to gently lever them to the side, and then you'll pull them off just fine. Speaking of the switches, they are probably its biggest claim to fame because they're well known to be the favorite switches of Cindy, and if you've heard of her at all, you know praise doesn't get much higher than that. And after she mentioned this preference, this keyboard got much more into the spotlight, and in fact I've had fuck tons of requests to review it. The switches are NEC blue ovals, easily recognized from the oval slider shape and NEC branding on top. They also made other color variations, such as this watery piss yellow linear variant, but the blue ones are by far the most common. They're clicky switches with an interesting modular design. This is what the empty switch housing looks like. And here is the switch plate, which is a self-contained module that just slides into the housing like this. On the other side is room for a click leaf, just like with Alps switches, although the clicker is a different shape, and then this little plate goes over that. The modules are kept inside the switch using 4 tiny plastic rivets here, 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 and here. And these snap under too much force, hence why you can break the switches if you pull the caps off too ruthlessly. I mean, they don't break with the slightest pressure or anything. If you know what to do, it's a piece of cake pulling them safely, but I still figured it's worth mention. The key feels a little on the stiff side, about 70 grams, but it's very smooth and with a satisfying tactile event. They feel and even sound a little bit like stiffer Monterey switches, and they have a delicate feel and typing noise that's actually quite nice. Clicky! It's great fun typing on these. I can see why Cindy likes these so much. One thing I should note is that they actuate well before the clicky event, so you can type on them without them clicking. Now, this is normally not noticeable when typing, but I found that when gaming, sometimes I would actually actuate a switch without meaning to. Overall, they're probably not my absolute favorites, like with Cindy, but I agree they're definitely really good switches, worth a try for sure. Concluding, this is a very nice keyboard. I'm very happy with it. Although it's different in almost every way from the Model M, I'd say it feels like just as genuine a product. Very well built, the switches are great, the keycaps are excellent, not really much to complain about here. One thing I should mention is that although it works fine over PS2 and with my Saurus converter, I found it didn't like my Belkin converter, and I've heard the crappy Blue Cube converter doesn't work on this model either, so keep that in mind. Anyway, that's it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and following is a typing demonstration of me typing on this keyboard.